the weekend there and the weekend weather, you might want to go check out a movie. And Las Vegas Weekly film editor Josh Bell joins us now to review 2 movies out this weekend. One of them stars Tom Cruise, which is one of my faves.
He's always good, or at least always, he's got charisma, even if his movies aren't always good.
Right. It stars Tom, and you know it's going to be somewhat decent. Like you said, like he's never won an Oscar, right? I don't think so. I think that's always been a big thing, and it's like,
yeah, I don't know if he has, but he's a solid actor, and he's a great movie star. I think that's maybe an underrated skill, that not only being a good actor, but being able to draw you into something kind of popcorny and silly and make you believe it. And he's got that skill.
Okay, so Jack Reacher did it. Wasn't really. I've heard mixed things. Let's get your take on Jack. This is the second movie out.
Yeah, the first Jack Reacher movie from a couple years ago was sort of a modest hit. It wasn't a huge blockbuster, but it did well enough that they're making another one. It's based on a series of novels by Lee Child, and the books have a huge fan base. And I think, actually, speaking of Tom Cruise, some of the fans weren't happy with his casting initially, that he wasn't quite what they imagined for the character, but he definitely brought that, like I said, the movie star charisma, and the first Jack Reacher movie, which wasn't spectacular, it did have some really intense action and some memorable fight scenes and stuff like that, and this movie doesn't even have that. I don't know, I haven't read the books, so I can't say whether it translates well, whether those fans who were not happy with Tom Cruise's casting initially will be happy with how it turns out in this movie, but it's hard to imagine this movie coming from any kind of distinctive vision at all. It's one of the most generic action movies I've ever seen. It's got very mediocre fight scenes. It's got this kind of underwhelming, half-hearted plot to it, and poor Jack Reacher is stuck with this spunky teenage sidekick in this movie. They maybe felt like they needed to draw in a different kind of audience, and so you've got this 15-year-old girl who's now tagging along with Jack Reacher, and it's more about his bonding with her than it is about this main mystery.
Well, that sounds nice. Maybe women would like it because there's a little bit more motion.
I mean, but Jack Reacher himself is not really able to express emotion. That's kind of his whole thing. He's this very closed-off, intense guy, and so the bonding scenes really, I don't think, work very well, and the kid is kind of annoying, to be honest.
Okay, and I know a lot of people are going, well, I don't even really remember the original Jack Reacher. Did we need a second one?
No, we definitely did not, and if the first one was forgettable, this one is even more so. I think you'll forget it before it's even over.
All right, but it's got Tom. Is it worth seeing in the big screen because it's got Tom?
I can't honestly recommend it even so. If you love Tom Cruise or you love Jack Reacher, maybe watch it when it hits cable, but I don't think it's worth your $10 at the movie theater.
All right, Josh. Okay, well, maybe this is a little better, and I think we were talking in the break, and you were saying it's pretty decent. It's Ouija, The Origin of Evil. Now, this is the horror prequel.
Yes.
So the original one was out years ago, right?
It was just a couple years ago. It was actually probably the same year as the first Jack Reacher. We're now getting to sequels for both of these movies. And it made a bunch of money. These horror movies, you know, they don't cost a lot to make, so if they make a decent amount at the box office, they end up really profitable. But the first Ouija movie, it was terrible. It was worse than anything Jack Reacher has done. And the great thing about this prequel is that they've taken the fact that they've had this success and given this franchise to a director, Mike Flanagan, who actually has a real artistic vision for this film. He made a movie called Oculus a few years ago, which was a really inventive horror movie, a movie called Hush that's on Netflix now that's very worth checking out. And so this movie, even though, yes, it's based on a board game, it has a lot more style, it has a lot more atmosphere to it, has some really good acting, some great period detail. It is a prequel, so it takes place in the 1960s. It's not a brilliant film, but if you like horror, I think it's worth seeing.
All right, good and interesting information. That's one of those games, I guess you'd call it, board games that I never really loved. It's scary in itself.
It can be, yes.
It can be. Thanks, Josh, for 2 reviews. We'll have it online at KTNV.com. Stay with us.